I'm Matt Hillebrand with Don's Appliances, and I'm with our corporate chef, Anthony Marino, and we're going to go over the importance of preserving your foods longer in your freezer. So a big thing that everybody talks about is, how do I prevent freezer burn? And really, I think we need to dive in first and really explain what freezer burn truly is. Because I don't think a lot of people know really what freezer burn is.
I mean, and we're talking about every one of your French door, your bottom freezers, your side-by-sides, your chest freezers. They're all going to really work the same way. And, like Matt said, the freezer burn is kind of like the main eyesore in there. So, I mean, just explain to them, give them a rundown of, the basic steps that the freezer takes.
So any unit that is frost-free, which is pretty much all of our top mounts, side-by-side, freezer on the bottom, and then upright freezers. Some chest freezers are frost-free, some are manual defrost. So we're going to take the manual defrost items, which are becoming few and far between in freezers. They're mostly just available in chest freezers. But what freezer burn truly is your food is in a freezer, and it is a defrost, is a frost-free unit, so it goes into defrost. So what happens is, depending on how often you're in that freezer compartment, ice will essentially build up inside the unit, right? So you're getting warm air from inside your room, hitting that below 32-degree cold air, so you will have ice build up inside the freezer somewhere. And what happens is the unit senses that there's an ice buildup, or it's on a defrost timer where it's time to kick on, and little heaters are designed to heat up, get rid of that frost so you don't have issues. But when that frost is heated up and melted, it's also essentially defrosting your food.
And that's a big part. It's bringing the temperature of the product in your freezer down, and then it's bringing it back up. So essentially, that's where a lot of that ice crystallization, appears, and that's where you see, when we talked about the ice cream, and you see that ring of frost around that ice cream and things like that. I mean, freezers are preserved. You can keep it, but there is a timeline on everything. I like to say, you know what I mean. Even for me, like as a chef, I have all this stuff, but that's why we label and date it too. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I mean, what do you think? Like rough guidelines. I mean, look at your manufacturers.
3 to 4 months, I would say you need to be turning your food, because when you get that constant freeze thaw, and it's not like it's totally thawing it. It's not. You're just getting just that slight heat up, which is causing moisture to escape out of the product, and then it's freezing back up, which is then covering whatever it is you've got. You've got to turn that food fairly quickly.
Yeah.
So
and from a counter perspective too. I mean, 3 to 4 months, you're really deteriorating the product as well too. You know what I mean? You lose a little bit of its identity. So I mean, you want to, like you said, turn that over and really dig into that freezer and use it. So
yeah. So so when we really dive into, if we look at what's better, freezer on top units, side by sides, meaning the freezer is on the left side, refrigerator's on the right, or a freezer on the bottom, whereas you've got the refrigeration on top, freezer on the bottom. I think it's 6, 1/2 dozen the other.
Absolutely.
Probably the most efficient would be a freezer on the bottom, because cold air drops, because it's heavier than humid air, warm air, but ultimately, as the air descends inside a refrigerator compartment, it ends up becoming humid air, because you've got the humidity control crispers at the bottom of most refrigeration products. So, in my opinion, it's whatever you prefer, whatever works best for your family and your lifestyle.
Yeah, I agree too. And then, the other thing to think about is, when you put these things in, and you go buy big 20 pounds of chicken, things like that, it's going to expand, okay? And you got to think about that. I see so many customers that break shelving and crack pieces of plastic off because they're trying to jam so much into their freezer. I get it, it's a thing, but you got to still give it some room to expand, and then give it room for that airflow as well. I mean, you don't just take your freezer and shove everything to the fridge, everything to the gills, and pray the door closes. You know what I mean? You have to give it some room to expand, so you don't really break your shelving or wire shelving or plastic shelving. I've seen it all the time. It hangs through the shelves. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
It's just and think about.
And we've seen common problems with people with various types of freezers, but it seems as though people with bottom freezers, there tends to be a tendency for people to not be able to see, let's say, what may drop down and what may or may not prevent your freezer drawer from closing properly. So we have seen issues where we've seen excessive frost buildup, excessive ice buildup in bottom freezers because there's something preventing that door or drawer from closing all the way. So if you find in your freezer compartment you've got excessive ice buildup, it's because warm air was coming in from the area.
Yeah, exactly.
It's coming in from somewhere. So either you're not closing that door all the way because there's something preventing it from closing, or you have an issue with the gaskets. So, that's a big, big issue. So when people say, well, what do you think's better? Again, I always harp back, it's whatever a personal preference is. But, bottom freezers tend to have that lack of certainty of really seeing what drops down.
And even from a use and care standpoint, like those gaskets are one of those things, guys, that you should maybe every week or every other week just check on and make sure, just pull them back, make sure they're not ripping, make sure there's not any buildup of food particles or anything that drops down from the fridge in there. Even just take a little bit of cloth and just wipe those things clean, because they make such a huge impact on your fridge that you guys don't even, it might not even cross your mind, but that seal prevents all that air, like Matt said, from going in and out. So.
And a great example would be, weather stripping on windows. Could you imagine in the wintertime that if you had cracked weather stripping and then you had it snowing inside your house or frost on your walls, right?
Whistling through your whole house. You know what I mean? Just imagine a loud whistle through your whole house. That's exactly what's going to happen with that.
Absolutely. So if our gaskets are torn or if they're not making proper contact, it's going to be Armageddon inside that freezer. You're going to get such ice buildup. You're going to have major issues. You could possibly, ultimately have floor damage if it goes into defrost. So those are just little things.
I know we're jumping around, but the gasket on the fridge too. You know what I mean? The doors on the fridge as well, whether it's French door side by side, or a single unit, it's the same thing, and that takes a big beating too. I know we're jumping around, but you said gaskets, and I'm like, it's the same. If the fridge takes even more work.
Absolutely. So if you're seeing that excessive frost buildup, the first thing you want to think of is, where is that warm air coming to cause that frost to build up? So I'm just going to circle back around. The big thing we kind of went over is we want to rotate our food every 3 to 4 months.
Absolutely.
Ultimately, the only way to prevent major freezer burn is really to use that food quickly.
Yeah.
So don't forget, time-wise, like you said, put dates on it.
Put dates on it. Give it some room. Don't put all that stuff in there. You know what I mean? Give it some room to expand, and kind of designate it. Keep meats and fish here. Keep your veggies here, so it's easier for you to grab. So you're not really opening the drawer and grazing and gazing around. You know what I mean?
Yeah. If you want to continue this conversation, you can talk to any of our sales associates at any of our Pittsburgh or Erie locations. Be sure to go to Don's Appliances or go to our YouTube channel.
All right. Thank you all.